Okay, so we're in Satisfying Cactus. This is the second sprint, and we're in the review for this. So this is where this is interesting. So the sprint essentially spanned 2 weeks, right? Because we wanted to take a breakout for chord build. But what I've done from a sprint duration standpoint is I've actually built in another week for those that aren't going to be participating in chord build. And so what we'll actually do is we'll close out the sprints at the end of next week. So you'll see interesting graphs or charts from this sprint. Sorry, 2 week sprint, or I guess 3 weeks, and then we're looking at about 47 stories completed, 113 not completed, but this is within the context of sprint 2. I actually haven't gone through and added it all up for the full sprint. We'll get started with the next thing, which is BBWF.
I think this is the report. I think I lost track of the stories, etc. But I think that we can call the epic done. The demo went well and we survived.
Good. I don't know. I was asking Jonah for how many cards did you guys get from folks? So we're going to compare it to the layer 1, 2, 3 one and see who won.
Yeah, it's a question for a team, not me. Yeah, but just in case people weren't aware of what we're demoing, the point of the demo was basically to show the new M-CORD based white box OLT that we've been working with for the last month or so. Get that working with Volta and on-off, and also integrated with R-CORD. So we had a very small R-CORD pod there of 2 servers, head node and compute node. We had a fabric switch and the OLT. And basically the demo was we wanted to start with bringing up a new subscriber, so we'd enable their OLT, their ONU, right, as though they've just plugged into their connection at home for the first time. And then we showed how that gets plumbed through Volta and into on-off, and how a new port comes up in on-off for that subscriber. And then subsequently how on-off is able to provision the flows and enable connectivity. And then once that was working, we showed the features of our code that we showed before, like parental controls and enabling or disabling the connection. That was basically the demo, and it was pretty well received, like Michelle said. There was lots of different service providers there, and as usual, they're always very interested in this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it went really well.
Yeah, I think there was also a lot of interest from service integrators.
Yeah.
That for me was kind of a new era of people interested in chords.
Like which ones? Which ones?
They were small to medium service integrator, mainly from Eastern Europe.
Does the team have a list of them?
Of course.
Excellent.
Yeah.
He hunted down any one of those.
I guess the one sort of takeaway that I had in terms of the demo was that we've always had this demo where we change something in XOS, like the parental controls or the enabling disable of a subscriber, but that takes a minute and a half or 2 minutes or so for that change to actually take effect in the back end. And while we can definitely explain that away and say, in a real setup, you don't really care if it takes that long. For a demo, it doesn't really work that well. Was the feeling I had, because you do all the setup, you say, okay, I'm going to change the parental controls, and here we go, and then you have to kind of stall for a minute and a half while you wait for it to actually happen. So you kind of don't get the payoff that you're hoping for. So I think next time we do demos like this, we should try and address this issue to make sure that we can make changes much more faster, so we can kind of achieve it for everyone for demos. That was kind of the only feedback I had.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? Okay, let's move on to chord build, which is coming up next week.
So the summary here, at least for the platform track, is that materials for talks are still coming together. The hands-on So draft slides, I think, exist for just about all of the talks right now, but people are still getting feedback on those. The hands-on tutorial, I think, is in pretty decent shape, though I guess there's still some work being done to prepare the orange box that we're going to use for the tutorial. And we still need to figure out what is the workflow for the sessions between the tutorial where we clean everything up. But I think we're on track to be ready by early next week. So Zach and I show up in Menlo Park on Monday late morning, and I guess the plan, I think, is to do some practice talks and get sit in a room and give each other feedback, hopefully on Monday afternoon and Tuesday. So I think that is pretty much where we stand. So we can go through the individual bullets on this slide. So the ones that I know about, I mentioned the hands-on tutorial, the slides in the write-up are done. For the talk that Gopi and I are doing about virtual infrastructure, we have a draft of slides, but as I mentioned, we haven't had a chance to actually go through a practice talk yet. One of the things I've been doing is working with NTT East. So they're trying to prepare some kind of demo for Chord Build involving onboarding a new service. And this is very relevant to the hands-on tutorial, which is all about doing exactly that. So I jumped in to try to help them out. And I think they're in pretty good shape, but time is getting short, so I don't know how much additional work that they need to do to actually get their demo completely done. They're, of course, in Japan, and so there's when I'm coming online, oftentimes they're going home for the evening, so progress has been kind of slow just because of time zones. And okay, so this is a new bullet. So the physical pod installation for the tutorial appears to be done now, so that's good. So this hands-on tutorial prep where it says prepare CAB orange box, that is now done, so we can remove that. Anybody else want to add to what I said?
Sure. So my two bullets are the first two. I think I'm at a second draft of my slides, waiting for people to take a look. Hopefully it's pretty close at this point. The other bullet was to make example service more interesting. That's the service that I kind of did a little modeling walkthrough during the talk. So I've added some more modeling to that service in support of that talk, and just moving forward to have that service more interesting so it's less hollow. I also revised the Tosca recipe for example service so it will use the new Tosca engine. That's it for me on this slide.
To follow up on the orange box, more than half of the nodes on there are installed with the version for the demo. So we should be in good shape for that. And also, my talk's coming along. I'll have it ready on Monday so we can go over things and do some dry runs then.
So have we walked through the hands-on tutorial on the orange box yet?
I don't think so, but there are quite a few nodes that are useful. I've been letting Luca and Andy know about that. If people want to try that, go ahead. There's a patch that makes it work. One part of which should not go into master, and one part that it probably should. I think we should work that through. If you want a node, Scott, I can just give you a node and you can try it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind trying it out. I know Andy's notes say that it'll take like 20 minutes to do something, and I was curious.
Yeah.
You know, that was on Cloud Lab with a whole lot of resources, whether it's also
Right.
reasonable time on Orangebox with less resources.
The thing is, we also need to demo, or we also need to make sure we can tear down, so we can tear down between the sessions, and tear down people's work between the sessions, so that we can have the next people start from something of a clean slate.
I can grab a node and go through the tear down and tear up process.
Okay, I'll make a list of people who are signed up to lead that session, and assign a node to person on Slack. Does that sound good?
Great. Yeah, let's coordinate this on Slack, but I agree that we need to actually try out the demo on the hardware we're going to be using.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. And then I know that for chord build, there were the other groups, right? So we've got E-chord, M-chord, A-chord.
Yeah, I mean, me and Mark are in the process of building the slides. I guess that China Mobile takes priority over that. So we have some working, well, not working, sorry, some initial ideas and a first draft of them. We need to polish them up. It's probably work that is going to happen on the weekend, and by Monday we're going to review them together and get feedback from other people. I know that's kind of tight, but also our talk is on Thursday, so we actually don't need them by Tuesday.
Makes sense. The talk's always last minute. Okay, let's move to migrating E-chord to 4.0.
Yes, so I can speak to that. We resolved a lot of bugs that were not, for things that were not working, such as component configuration that was not properly done through XOS. Now it's done to that. We resolved app not activating on global. That was because of some DNS error that we encountered. We have a workaround for that. It's something that still shows up on the ONF pod, but we also have a fix for that, and Suchitra and Zach were looking into it. We automated the application configuration as much as possible, in the sense that we're currently pushing both component config and JSON files through Tosca recipes during the deployment. We tested the whole E-chord infrastructure and applications on almost 1.10.8, and that works. We did a full test of the service chain and the data plane here at ONF, and on the ONF pod, on the global and pod 1 and 2. That works, with some minor caveats, but the bottom line is that works. We wrote completely from scratch, with great help from Luca, the guide for E-chord, which is now published, which includes the bill of materials, wiring diagram, configuration steps, overview of E-chord, overview of the global and the local pods, the whole service chain, and things like that. What else did we do? Not included in here, but a huge chunk of our time went to supporting China Mobile with their deployment, which they are doing right now. Also a shout out to Zach and Scott for helping a lot here in all these build related bullets. And then we did some in progress, the CFM layer 2 monitoring integration testing. We know it is working, but the UI is still under review because we completed it last minute, and China Mobile support took priority over testing that in the ONF pod. So that's in progress bullet. I think that's it. Zach, Scott, Luca, want to add something?
I have nothing to add. I think you covered it all. I feel it seems like it's in good shape.
Yeah, I would agree.
So is the E-CORD migration to 4.0 done, 90% done?
So I think that from service perspective, the service is all migrated to 4.0. So meaning that it is done. There are some of the features that we scoped out for the release of 4.1 that still need to be completed, but those are bullet points that we explicitly decided to do after cord build and after the China mobile deployment, because we knew that we did not have time, and that is well, completely integrate the CFM OEM and the service split with S-Tag and C-Tag. That is something that we said we will probably gonna do by the 4.1 release December the 1st.
Okay, thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Yen.
M-CORD?
I can talk about the M-CORD here. For the task we already done is plug the service dependencies through and sync dependencies. And we noticed for use the coding box is not enough. So Luca helped us to create the full pod through Jenkins inside the OF server room. And together with the Spanish team, we set up their lesson server, the UI server, outside the code pod, because these two components are not belonging to the code. And then we set up the experiment emulator, the run MME application server emulator VM inside the code. And we set up the flat network to give the connectivity between the VMs inside code and outside the code, which one already works. And the engineers finished all the playbooks for the eNode B VM, SPKWC, and SPKWU VM. We have for the code build, we will use these 3 VMs, so all the playbooks are done. For the work in progress is after we run the image and inside the our code, which is a cloud environment, the SPKWU doesn't work very well due to the PCI mapping. We figured out the problem, and right now a shock from Intel is fixing that. I need to test again inside our pod. And the Migrate EPC service to call the 4.0, this one is still in progress. And because this is the first time we integrated the Windows image into our code, into OpenStack, so they missed a lot of small components inside. And so far, only one issue left. We still can't use the public key to log in because the different users and the configuration inside the public key login is disabled inside their images. So need to rebuild the image and enable this feature. The next one is the UE IP address will show up on the SGI network, which is not make sense for the code, but this is still necessary for the functions of the M-CORD. So we need to use a hack here to solve it for short term. For long term, we need to discuss with the code team how to do that. And sorry, for long term, we did not discuss with the code team. We need to discuss with Intel. They need to put the NAT inside their VM. So this application shouldn't show up on SGI network. And so because for the run side, we already set up for EPC, and Intel is still working on that. So right now, so far, we haven't have an end-to-end test for the code build. The documentation, we updated the documentation, but not finished yet. And for the slides, because we are really busy with the code build demo, we want to set up an environment to show to people. So right now, that environment does not work yet. And so we haven't got the time to work on the I and Wenjun have 2 talks on Thursday, so we haven't got time to work on that. We will work it on the Thursday. And Thanks a lot to Andy, Sapan, and Matthew working on M-CORD, but we still haven't finished it. Still need to continue working on it after the code build.
Ping Ping, is the third bullet from the bottom, that's UE, right?
UE, right.
Okay.
So I have a couple of points to add here around the EPC service that I've been working on. I think it's in pretty good shape. We've implemented it in a way that's generic and can be used to quickly put together an EPC-like service whose goal is to chain other services together. So actually, I'm going to give a quick demo of that. There were two parts to this. There was the mechanism of the chaining part, so taking a service chain and plumbing that through to the synchronizer. That's completely done, and there was the part of actually implementing the EPC service and onboarding it and getting that working, and that's close to being done. The part that's left there is essentially checking in all the artifacts and making sure the onboarding process works smoothly. So mechanistically, that's working, but I'll come back to that at the end and give a quick demo.
Okay, and then I guess the question I have is, in general, are we on track to migrate M-CORD to 4.0 by beginning of December?
Yeah, I think for December, yes. Oh, I saw on the latest slides. I don't know the date is December 1. I saw people changed it to 17th, so I really confused which date it is.
Someone changed this to the 17th?
Yeah, I saw other people's slides. I saw the release. It looks like, I don't know, this David's slide or Larry's. Looks changed to 17. So just want to confirm which date it is. 17, yeah.
Okay, let me check. Unit test.
So the first one of these is mine. This was to unify unit test to run with a single command. I chose to use the Nose2 framework on this. I think this is working for somewhere 120 some odd test cases in the XOS repo. This was a bit of an unexpected challenge in that these frameworks typically import all the tests in the same Python interpreter, and some of the tests were stomping on one another. So there's probably going to come out of this some new guidelines for writing unit test cases to make sure they don't stomp on one another. There's a few test cases that still need to be migrated, some things that had some manual steps that couldn't be automated at this time. I think the second item is Mateo's.
Yes, second one is mine. I'm working on it right now. I'm creating a Jenkins job to run the unit test in XOS. I got the first successful run this morning with a little bit of manual setup. So I'm now working to automate it, but it's like 90% done. It will be done by today.
Okay, thanks, Mateo. Maintenance?
The first one is mine again. So in the last few weeks, we added the bug view in XOS that was parsing the timestamp into human readable dates. But there were some cases in which it was not converting them back to timestamps, so XOS will throw an error when trying to save those models. That issue has been fixed and married in master. I'm going to cherry pick it in 4.2 and verify that it still works with the hands-on tutorial.
So we found a couple of errors. We ran into a couple of errors in the new logging module we implemented in the last release. The configuration of our logger was interfering with the configuration of loggers used by other libraries. And so stack traces wouldn't show up if they would escape out of the code that we've implemented, out of XOS. This has been fixed, and so now we see proper detailed exceptions everywhere, regardless of whether errors are occurring in our code or they occur in lower layers like gRPC, etc. Similar was an error that was preventing logging handlers from being configured, and so this actually cropped up in the implementation of Scott's test framework. Certain things had to be reconfigured there, and the configuration wasn't getting through to the logging handler. So this is fixed as well.
Okay. And Zach?
Yeah, the next ones are mine. A lot of these were related to DNS. We had some issues with DNS not coming up properly because of either one of the daemons didn't start or it got hung in a funny way. So that got resolved. We were using a variable called headnode in multiple places. One place it was being used is for SSHing into something, and the other was for DNS configure. Those, it sometimes would have the same value, and when they had different values or something that was specific to one of them, it would break. We were missing a CNAME for the ONS Fabric container. The failure to try to connect a head node in Jenkins test, that's the problem where we were running parallel make and it would occasionally fail out. I added some retry logic that hopefully will deal with that. I've yet to see it fail after adding that, but I think people are still paranoid about parallel builds. I think we should re-enable that once we get past cord build. And the to-do item is we still have a bunch of sort of scary warning messages that Ansible throws up that are deprecation warnings that I'm meaning to go through. That's it.
Okay. Containers?
So for this, working with linker networks, we are about 40% complete. This CORD 2102 has a bunch of subtasks in them. We have a basic implementation going with a simple OVS network with some manual configuration. So we are trying to automate that. And yeah, we are about 40% complete.
Okay. Orchestration?
There was no meetings for the last 2 weeks, so I don't really have an update. The last I heard from Murat was that he was going to attend a TSC meeting with ONAP this week. And in that meeting, they were going to talk about what interfaces are going to be exposed in the upcoming release of ONAP, which is called Amsterdam. Right now, we don't yet have any documentation on publicly available SDKs or APIs that will allow us to extend the ONAP components to use CORD. The meeting was supposed to give us some information. I've not heard anything from them.
Okay. Let me know if you guys need a sprint in the next sprint, right, based upon the brigade status.
Can you repeat that again?
So we have a sprint set up in Jira for orchestration.
Yeah.
So let me know if you need one in the next sprint.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'll talk to Murat. I'm hoping that he'll be there during the CORD build, so I'll talk to him and try and monitor it in a sprint. He did mention last time when we spoke in the email thread that some of the tasks will probably fall under the UNOS umbrella rather than the CORD umbrella. But yeah, we need to decide how we're going to track it.
Okay. And then uniform development environment.
I think these are mostly mine. 2017 was changing all the head VM names to be head one instead of head node. mainly for muscle memory. The in-progress ones are mainly image builder related, improvements to that to make it easier for people to develop services and have to do less changes in less places to result in a new synchronizer coming on board. And also to support things like the Maven repo and possibly in the future the mass containers built before and downloaded. The one to-do item is we needed to pull logs from the Onus Fabric container so that QA can do some work mainly to support E-CORD. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Deployments?
Yeah. So the phase one of China mobile deployment, so deploy core itself, the basic platform in China has been completed, deployed on 3 pods successfully. We created automated deployments both for E-CORD and M-CORD at ONF, and over time we fixed the ones that were already existing on the QCT pods. R-CORD has been successfully deployed at NTT-Com. And new QCT switches have been validated by CHARS and have been deployed at the pod at QCT, so they are ready to be demo at core build next week. Unfortunately, there remain out one of the main bullets in terms of priority, which is the deployment of E-CORD in China mobile. Of course, things move forward. We provide them all these instructions, but we can definitely call it done, and I think they still have major issues that needs to be solved. So I don't know if we will be able to complete this before core build. A few extra, we are planning new deployments, and I've been constantly in contact with these 3 teams, Entity East, Kevium, and Netsia or Argela. So these are coming. We are agreeing mainly on IT issues and hardware to buy. That's it from my side.
Okay, thanks, Luca. Expand QA coverage.
So for QA, first 2 tasks, 2128 and 2129 are regarding setting up Jenkins jobs to run on E-CORD local and global pods. Basically, after building the pods, there are some tests that are built to check the containers, UNOS apps and services, and also to validate if there are no errors after deployment. So they have been completed, and then they are running continuously after the pods are being built. And 2130, we updated the Jenkins job to parameterize some of the options while we are running the sanity tests on the pods. So that has been completed. And the next 2 stories, 1817 and 1818, are Sienna tasks, and they have been completed too. And the other in progress tasks, these are about the M-CORD jobs for the Jenkins based jobs. We already created the job. The only reason is we are not able to test some of the profiles because of resource issue, and also due to the cord build activities, we had been very busy with that. And in the tasks that are done, we are working with the for the cord build activities, we are working with Spirent and Flex to come up with some scenarios for our cord and demo them in the science fair. And also there is another presentation and talk where the slides are almost done, but we still need to refine few things on the slides. And there are a few miscellaneous items which are still pending for the cord build activities. So that we plan to continue today and probably Monday. So it should be all taken care by then. So that's all for QA.
Okay, thanks, Suchitra. Patrick?
Hi. In this sprint, we fixed several bugs on both on the side and also, in the app and also in the driver. we also now support adding new switches in runtime. So this is still not the full dynamic configuration ability for changing device configuration, but at least we can add devices for now. And then I'm still in progress of preparing core build tutorial materials. So after discussing with Saurabh and David, we decided to, I only have an hour session, and then the thing I want to talk is probably too much. So we decided to remove the hands-on part, so it will become a kind of demonstration and and kind of tutorial. So I'm still in progress of preparing that materials. That's it from about the fabric features improvement. So dual homing, most of the tests are still in progress. The first one is the dual homing failover issue. We upgrade our OFDPS software to the latest EA5, and we also try a different model of switch hardware. And then we are still able to reproduce the same issue with EA5, but even worse, we found a new issue with EA5, and we're solving that problem with Broadcom right now. I'm also looking into this delayed discovery of the dual home location. A short-term fix we're trying to implement is to have a proactive probing mechanism. In the long term, we probably want to move forward to implement the LACP protocol for dual homing. Yeah, that's it. Is E over there?
Nope.
Then I can give an update about this. So so this spring we finished with the help of Harmonic. We finished the DLCP v4, D-Square, and it's merged right now, and they're also working on v6 right now. And E also fixed a DLCP relay security issue reported by Harmonic, and that's also merged. Another item which is still work in progress is the fixing the incorrect next hub for indirect DHCP hosts. That's finished, but still under review. Okay.
So updates from M-CORD, and then Satisfying Cactus Sprint 3. So I'll close out the sprint at the end of next week, and then the week after on the 13th, we'll do the Sprint 3 planning at 2 p.m. So on next Friday, I'll close out the sprints and start the new ones, and so this way folks can prepare for the next one. And then keep in mind the next sprint has Thanksgiving built into it. And we do have a demo. Sapin's going to do a demo, so I am going to stop sharing, and then this way he can share his desktop.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, as I mentioned, we've implemented the EPC service with a certain degree of generality, so that if we try putting together a similar service or extending this service, then...
I'm a bit blind. Can you make the font bigger?
All right, let's see if this works.
Perfect.
Is that up? Okay, so the first part to using this EPC service or putting together a like service is that you declare a set of blueprints which correspond to service graphs, service chainings that you support. So we don't support arbitrary service graphs. Instead, we have a set of scenarios we call blueprints. Right now in the EPC service, we just have one. It's called build for the core build M-CORD demo. It consists of 3 nodes, and so we've got these 3 tenants chained together. Right, so when you do this, and you bring up the EPC service, the tenant configuration object has a field called blueprint that you can pick. And right now there's only one. When you save this tenant, it essentially brings up the service chain that we configured. And it does two things. It brings up the service instances. And the second thing it does is to create a service graph using the new way, using the service tenancy refactoring that we implemented in the previous release. So I'm going to go and show you the links there that got created. So these are the links corresponding to the services, and for the service instances, you have these links here. So from VSPGWC, the instance or the EPC setup VSPGWC instance to VSPGWU, and then the other one. So that's the first part, just providing a blueprint for your service graph, for your service chaining meta service, and seeing it show up, seeing all the elements being created. The second part is how this service graph plumbs through to the synchronizer and to actual mechanism. And so the service graph is exactly mirrored in synchronizer, in the synchronizer in the form of dependencies, right? So if I go to the service instances of one of these services that we set up, if I were to go here, and I were to look at the status of this service instance, then the error I see is external dependency on object VSPGWU tenant. This translation of dependencies is dynamic. So if we were to go back to the service instance link objects and delete them, then the synchronizer would pick them up dynamically and the dependency would get dropped and the two synchronizations would proceed in parallel. So that's unfortunately something you can't see in the UI immediately. So, but yeah, that just take a couple of seconds to show how it works in the synchronizer logs. So here we have synchronizations that are failing. The way the synchronizer works is it assembles items of work, independent items of work to do in the form of cohorts. So here we have a cohort of dependent objects that need to be synchronized. It's because of the service dependency link, right? So there's the VSPGWU object, and there's VSPGWC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go delete the service instance link. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to manually delete this link. Okay, that link is gone. I'm going to run Docker logs again. And so as we can see now, the cohorts have been broken up, right? So the VSPGWU tenant is no longer in the cohort with the VSPGWC tenant object, meaning that one does not block the other. And if you were to add the link back dynamically, then these dependencies will show up again. The semantics exactly mirror the semantics of the service graph in the UI. So if you were to, another way of dropping all of the dependencies between all of these pairs of objects is to simply go and drop the global service dependency instead of the service, instead of dropping individual service links. Anyway, so that kind of goes to show that synchronizer semantics and the way service and service instance objects are synchronized now exactly mirror the semantics of the service graph, and it's completely dynamic. So that's the demo.
So this looks really cool, Sapan. I think I'll have to wrap my head around it a little bit. But I have just a question. Can you go back to service dependency links? Sorry, yeah, that one. Could you see that the last link, the one with ID number 5, has one provider service instance and 2 subscribers. And again, I need to wrap my head around this, but it feels a little weird that a link object is actually representing 2 links.
Yeah, I was just writing Sapin a comment in Slack about that. I think that's a minor nit. You only need to fill in one of those, not both of those. So
Okay.
if you have a service instance, you should do the instance rather than the service.
All right. Yeah. So this needs to get dropped then. Yeah. It should only be this providing to this, and I guess maybe I misunderstood what the subscriber service ID field is for. So that needs to get dropped.
Yeah, I think we should bring this offline and we can talk face to face next week.
Yep, that works. Right.
Okay, thanks, Sapin. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye guys.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye, guys.